Welcome to Sip, Sell, Repeat, the real estate podcast for women who know success is best served with a great cup of coffee or a well-earned glass of wine. I'm Dr. Cynthia Tant, your go-to real estate expert, here to help you navigate the market with strategy, style, and a little bit of fun. Whether you're flipping your first property, scaling your portfolio, or just dreaming about your next big move, this is the place for you. So grab your drink of choice, settle in, and let's sip, sell, and repeat our way to success. Let's get started. So starting with sip, sell, and repeat. In real estate, I am Dr. Cynthia Tant, and I am here in Pensacola, Florida. I would like to introduce my guest for today, and got a story behind this, but I just want to let you know that Glenyss, Vylder, I believe, and I apologize for making this incorrect, but she is by the beach getaways, but she's joining us from Australia. And then Jennifer Polcyn and her company, New Journey Management, is joining us from Michigan today to share with their experiences in property management in the B&B business. So either one of you want to say how we got together about 4 years ago, or give your story a little bit real quick about that, just so that our listeners can understand how we know each other?
I guess I will go in. Yeah. So we just discussed it 2021 in the spring. So the three of us were in a class that was a larger group, and we were broken out into smaller groups. And the three of us were with, I think it was 3 or 4 other people. So our small group got to meet every week, and we got to know each other very well. And 4 years later, we're still communicating and getting together via Zoom, to just chat about what we're doing in our businesses and all that. Yeah.
And we haven't actually, you two have met. I've never met you two.
Yes.
That's true. We haven't seen you here in the States yet.
Not yet.
No, still to come.
You definitely need to come. Yeah, Jen's been to Pensacola. I've not been up to Michigan yet, but we've met at also conferences too, where our group has gotten together. And Glenyss, we haven't seen you yet. But
not yet.
It's coming. What's interesting here too is how the B&B industry is similar, but very different in maybe states and in different countries. Did you think, either Jennifer or Glenyss, that the B&B business was something that you were really wanting to get into as a business, or how did that happen for either one of you?
For me, I've been hosting for 22 years, and as the industry evolved, so I started hosting when Vrbo Stays in Australia was bought out by Vrbo, bought out by HomeAway, bought out by Expedia, but it started as Stays. So I started back in 2002 with our own property. And so from there, Airbnb came onto the scene. So I got involved with Airbnb and then Booking.com, and then a wide range of booking sites. When I joined Legends X, I really recognized the value of putting systems in place, really getting the business locked down and becoming more efficient and creating a real business. Even though I'd been running a business for a few years, I knew there was a lot more I needed to do. So that's why I joined Legend X. And since then, it's really allowed me to take off and expand.
Yeah, so the class was about a year after I started with the short-term rental stuff. So I've only been doing short-term rental for 5 years, a little over 5 years. So I started as in my exit plan of my divorce. I needed something to do when I moved back to Michigan after I got divorced. So I bought the house that I was going to live in, a separate part, a back lot above the garage, a little studio apartment. And then I rented out my cottage. I did that for a year and really liked it so well that I started getting interested in managing other people's properties. And then that's when I knew I had to, there's no college classes, at least back 5 years ago, there wasn't. Maybe there is now, but there wasn't. And so I was looking to educate myself, started listening to podcasts and just looking into the industry leaders, and then signing up for that Legends X class that Glenyss had mentioned. So that's really where I learned a lot of just the how to run it, and then getting prepared to actually scale your business. Yeah.
I agree. I had already been in property management from a long-term perspective, but then from the short term, I'd already done a couple of my own short term, but that course also. So education was very important for, I think, all three of us, obviously, to get into scaling our businesses and to be able to manage other people. So let me ask you a question on Jen. What you say you've managed other properties or you are managing other people's properties. What are some specific questions that you would ask of a new owner about managing their property for them? What are some things that you want to find out from that new owner as far as their idea of what B&B rentals are supposed to be?
Yeah, obviously just getting to know them and just feeling out how the relationship will go. And I didn't really know that at the beginning. And that's you find out once you get an owner that doesn't really mesh well with you and your business and the ideas of how you want to operate things, if it doesn't work, then it's not a good relationship. So just getting to know them a little bit before you sign contracts, just getting to know how much they want to stay at their property, if anything at all. Are they going to be hands-on? Do they want to do the lawn care? Or do they want to just sit back and receive the money? So getting to know them with that. And then one of the biggest things for me has been obviously safety in the rentals. And that's something that I've either, when it's not been a property that's been short-term rental before versus one that's been going. So I've had a couple rentals that I've taken over for other management companies from the owners, and getting in there and seeing what they have safety wise. It's actually pretty terrifying knowing that they've hosted several guests in this property. And yeah, this is not the fun light stuff right now. We're just
That's okay. Let us know. Let us know, Jen.
Let's just get
let's
this
get it out. Yeah.
scary part over with. But yeah, just seeing the very first rental that I had where I was very concerned about the safety. I went and did the initial safety check for them, and I walked in, and it's a 2-story house, and they had one smoke detector in the whole entire place. There were 4 bedrooms. And then they had a fire extinguisher that was buried underneath the sink. And it was one of those rechargeable ones, and it was dead. So then you walk out to the deck where the grill is. The grill's pushed up against the wall of the siding of the house, and the siding's all melted. And I'm like, were they trying to burn the house down? I don't understand. Those owners, it was just poor managed, and they really, unfortunately, they should have known better. So yeah, they were very happy to have me go through and do the safety check and we've got CO detectors now, fire extinguisher on each floor, and then the smoke detectors in each bedroom and in the main areas. And then the grill is now, actually, this is a little thing that I learned. I was like, okay, putting the grill in the corner of the deck, right? You think that's okay. It was fine for a couple years. And then I had the neighbor send me a picture, and your guests, you might want to check on your guests because there's like flames going up the side of the house because their grill is like, I'm like, are you kidding me? So second time. So I immediately, obviously, I addressed the issue, and nothing bad happened as far as that, but we did have to replace the siding again. But I went out to the hardware store and got a cable and a padlock and padlocked it to the deck to the corner. Just because you think that you moved it into a safe place doesn't mean they dragged it. I don't know why they dragged it back over. But yeah, so safety is an issue. The second place that I took over, they had smoke detectors around the house, but several of the batteries were dead. I talked to the owners and said, this is all the stuff that we need to have if I'm going to move forward on managing your property. And they were like, isn't that a little excessive, like having them in every bedroom? And I'm like, so just educating people, and
Right.
yes, we have to have them in there, or I'm not going to manage the place. And it's to protect their asset, right? Like I'm helping them to mitigate risk in their property and to protect probably their biggest asset that they have. So I'm not the enemy here. I'm just to
But
help.
it's very interesting, and Glenyss, I know you could jump in on this too. But it's very interesting on how the person. I don't know if you've seen this, but they have a different concept of what they would do for their own home that they personally live in versus their investment property. They're not there. So takes it upon us who are property managers in this area to educate them and let them know is do you want
to protect your asset, like you said, but also the guests and the people that are staying in your asset, just as if you were protecting your own family. Glenyss, have you had any kind of issues with any of your properties?
In Australia, we tend to have a lot higher requirements in terms of fire safety and other safety elements, but particularly fire safety. So we have to abide by the Short-Term Rental Association Code, which has all these criteria that you need to abide by. And even if you're renting long term, you have to have these fire safety elements in place, such as interconnecting smoke alarms in the corridors in each bedroom. So you are not compliant and your insurance is at risk if you don't have that sort of thing. You've got to have fire exit plans on each door, and they've got to be in the right orientation, and they get checked twice a year as a requirement.
Wow. Okay.
So there's a lot of that sort of thing. We had Justin Ford come to a conference in October, Justin Ford being the guru of safety in America, and he gave an Australian-oriented talk, and he was giving us examples of situations that had happened in the US. One that stands out is these people had this cast iron bath in the backyard, and they had built a fire underneath it, and they had kids and mum. There was this photo of the kids and the mum sitting in the bath full of water and this fire raging underneath it. And it's, are you for real?
Oh, God.
And other things he showed us that would not be, you've got to self-manage that safety in the US to a large extent, whereas we're not even allowed to list unless we've got tick, tick, tick. But there are still issues that people need to be aware of safety-wise. And so that's what he's come over to help basically educate the Australian market on that.
I think that's where, yeah, in America, we have the long-term rental laws
Pretty
for that
much.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
we
for
don't.
some reason, the short-term rental is not lumped into that, and we have no kind of regulations for that. I basically abide by, like, I set up my rentals like the long-term rentals. So that's just what I do personally, and that's what I think everybody should be doing, but they don't, because there's no accountability or laws out there that put short-term rentals in any kind of category. So it's really a scary and sad thing when people think that they need to bring their own CO detectors on vacation with them, or smoke detectors. That's horrible.
Yeah.
That we're providing lodging for people and we want to make money off of them, and we would rather spend our time and our money on decorating the place and getting extra throw pillows and fluffy blankets and towels. And it's like they don't want to spend the extra money on the extra safety measures to protect everything that they're buying. And it's really, yeah, it's a scary.
And then there's also the common sense things. I was listing a new property, and I actually talked to Justin at the conference, and it's a luxury property. And I said, okay, there's a fire pit and there are lots of rocks and steps and natural landscape. And he said, you've just got to be aware of trip hazards. You can put you've just got to catch people's eyes. So electrical tape on the edge of stone steps that are going down, or dots of paint, so that they can see that. And the same with a fire pit. He said the greatest amount of injuries in a fire pit are kids roasting marshmallows, because they will trip, and they can trip and fall, and that's the greatest injury. So if you put coloured pebbles around there to bring their eye to around where the fire is. So they're little things like that we don't necessarily think about that are good to know.
And what, not only, I think, Glenyss, you brought up a good point with stairs and more lighting. I found that more lights, putting more lights out. We do have the reflective and also the slip tape on a couple of places that have steps. Video cameras. Now, obviously, you don't have them inside, although people have tried that, but on the outside. And if I am aware of a case where the outside, they had cameras. Fortunately, they had cameras because a suit was being brought against the owners because a person tripped and got injured, but they tripped on the county sidewalk, but they were going after the homeowner. And so I don't know exactly what happened with the whole outcome of that, but is anything in your management manual or your operation that you would require or highly suggest in the United States to have some type of a Ring video camera or something to have lights and also some cameras on the outside of your properties?
I don't require the cameras. I definitely strongly suggest it because I basically tell them to, if I'm going to have to prove anything, in our case, if there's no camera footage, it's going to be very hard to prove anything. So I definitely let them know, even just a Ring camera is going to be good to prove that kind of stuff, even extra guests that come along. I recommend that. But extra lighting, yeah, people are very unfamiliar with your property. They've never been there before. So how do they know where stuff is at? They're usually getting there during the dark as well. Yeah, anything you can help with that. And then I also make sure that when we do the photography for the listing, I make sure that the yellow caution tape is on those like uneven transitions, or we've got, even there's stairs, like a lot of times at the top of the stairs, I have a sign that says use railing when you're going down. Because in the pictures, when I show that, we can say, hey, we warned them. Like I gave them every kind of warning that they could to be smart about not causing injury. Also, making sure that your fire extinguishers are predominant in your pictures. Photographers are going to come in and they're not going to want to have that ugly fire extinguisher in the picture. I say, no, my photographer knows. He knows to get the fire extinguishers in the pictures because that's going to be proof to the insurance company as well that that's there. And a little offshoot of the fire extinguishers, my cleaners every time take pictures. They're required to take a picture of the fire extinguisher gauge so that we can prove that it has been checked every time. We check the smoke detectors every time the turnover happens.
I like that about the fire extinguishers. I never even thought about having my cleaners
Yeah.
do. That's
Well, and
going
you
on
can,
my list right now.
yeah, but you can ask them, check to make sure the gauge is full. How many cleaners are actually going to check it? And probably none of them. But if you require the picture, and I use Breezeway
Yeah.
to do that, so I can require a picture. So they have to take a picture of that fire extinguisher, and then we can review that. But if there was anything like the next guest, if there was something to happen, and they say, oh, the fire extinguisher wasn't filled or it had been used, we have a picture to prove that there was a full fire extinguisher at the time. So it's all just building these cases along the way so that one time it happens, you can prove that
You can prove it
you were doing everything that you could to make it safe for
as a
them.
preventative measure. That's all you can do is have all the documentation. And
Yeah.
I know safety is, I believe, the biggest thing that you have to educate your consumer or your owner about too, because they don't
Yeah.
think of certain things. Some of them may have never even been into the property. Do you have some
Right.
owners that have never even been there? I know I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You
they're
usually
relying
know
on
Yeah, you
us.
usually know the property better
Yeah,
than they do.
they do.
And I encourage using proper insurance because they have they have a very tailored short-term rental policy for these instances. So they do require certain things. So they help you to know what to have in there so that if you're going to get a policy with them and you're on the waterfront, they say you have to have that sign that says no lifeguard and swim at your own risk kind of
Risk.
thing. Have some kind of life preserver by the water. They check your pictures. So when they go through your listing, they're looking for your pictures to see if there's steps that are over that have to have a railing. They're pointing those things out and they're doing that to make sure that the property is as safe as possible and you've done everything that you can.
Great points. And Glenyss, do you have something else that you'd like to contribute to this part?
Proper insurance is great. I don't think they haven't been in Australia. However, I did actually yesterday get notification that there's an insurance company. We're talking about travel insurance, and there's an insurance company, and I think the name is Proper. And I thought, I know that name from somewhere, so I'll go back and look at that to see if they're actually covering short-term.
They're coming back short-term rentals.
Yeah, it's basically a commercial policy for your property. So it's very beneficial for my properties because most of my properties are all lakefront. So you have to remember that when those guests go out on your dock that's in the water, they're off your property. And are you covered in your policy that you have? Most properties don't. So when they're in a kayak or when they're on that dock or when they go take a walk somewhere, they're going to try to sue you. If the neighbor has a dog that comes over and bites your guest, are you covered? Proper insurance pretty much takes out every exclusion possible and they have you covered. So it is a little bit more money than a normal policy, but it gives you that peace of mind. So that's that extra layer of protection. When you've done everything you can safety wise, then you have the insurance to pick up on the other side.
Well, and Glenyss, I don't remember this. Do you also own some of your properties that you manage? Is that correct?
We own one. Yeah.
Okay. So all of us are owners of property. So we are owners of short-term rentals. So as owners, we are educating ourselves for our own asset, obviously, but also we're having that education to make sure that the owners that we choose to, and like you, I don't take I don't take all the people that come and ask me to manage their properties. So that beginning relationship, and then would you do this? And if they're not cooperative, boy, I learned the hard way for this one guy. And so I won't even get into the stories for that. But getting that relationship in the beginning and setting the standards of your company, because it's protecting you also from the management, from anything that may come your way. And I've seen that too in our market. And it appears, and right now, get a little bit off of the safety here, but is the market right now, because I know, Jen, you're up in mainly summer vacation destination up in Michigan. Glenyss, you're winding down, right? We're in different seasons here. So yeah, opposite seasons. Yeah.
It really depends, because I'm on the Gold Coast
Okay.
and that's not very seasonal at all. I think
Okay.
the lowest is February and May, but mid-year, which is our winter, your summer, is one of the peak periods. We get a lot of people from the cold from Melbourne flying up to get away from the cold. We get lots of events happening, sporting events. Because it's subtropics, the weather is good all year round. And
Yeah.
and then I also manage properties in Port Stephens and the Central Coast, which is just north of Sydney in New South Wales. And that is much more seasonal. Although we have whales migrating up and down from June to October, and they also put on, because they're tourist destinations,
Right.
they will put on events, but the peak is really summer, December, January through to April, and then it does subside.
Right.
A bit, yeah.
So I think all three of us also are in vacation destination communities. Would that be a good thing to say? I know ours is really also on the beach because we're at the beach, and yours is waterfront also. I know Jen's, well, waterfront, but a little bit different. Yeah.
Different kind of water.
Different kind of water. Lake,
Yeah.
golf, ocean.
Yeah, in our off season, we get different groups of workers that come in and they're doing different projects in the area. I'm in the boonies. Like all there is
Yeah.
around here is inland lakes. So there's not events, we don't have whales and all that stuff. But
Don't
yeah.
have Mardi Gras going on, maybe. I don't know.
No
We just
Mardi
finished
Gras,
last weekend of Mardi Gras. Yeah.
Yeah, we pretend, but yeah. So yeah, but yeah, we have some workers and stuff like that in the off season that we can house. Yeah.
What do you feel since you've been in the short-term rental business, all of us have been for a short period or over 5 years here. What do you feel has been your most beneficial, what's the word that I want to find? Your most beneficial, either person you've spoken with, contact, course, something that's made a huge impact on how you've actually either organized your business or changed your business, whether it's you're working with a Vrbo and Airbnb, or whether it's working with a property management software system, or what is something that, if you could identify it, that has helped for you to be able to run your short-term rental management company?
Yeah, I had to think about that one, but it just popped into my mind. Yes, I've done numerous courses. Legends X was great, although there's things that I didn't implement in that I really wish I had. But I don't think you can implement everything. You take what is right for you now.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and you move ahead each time. But the biggest thing that I've done is put on a revenue manager. And I use John Ann from Tech Tape, who's based in Los Angeles. He is, I would say, the best revenue manager worldwide, not hands down, but he has enabled me to step back from that constantly tweaking the revenue, not quite understanding dynamic pricing in the tool that I was using, but not having the time to be in there every day, getting up to date with new processes, new things that were happening in that software, keeping in contact with AirDNA, Key Data Dashboard, all the other data sources that you really need to be aware of to be able to use with that. And that was the first thing I outsourced. And I've been working with him for probably 2.5 years, and he's really just enabled me to really get the maximum return on investment for the properties at the time. We've gone through some really rough periods where the markets just dropped down after COVID, and it was really hard to get bookings. So we've had to tweak the average daily rate and the occupancy, but we work at trying to get a combination of those two, with occupancy probably being more important. So you'll have months where it's a lot lower. You're not getting the great average daily rates, which is a difficult conversation with owners, because you've got to be able to say, yeah, you might only be getting $100 a night, but there are periods of time where if you are setting it yourself or just running it yourself with dynamic pricing, you might not get that $2,000 a night booking, that because you've got to get out of your own way. So using data to me is so important, and having somebody who understands it and works with it every day has been critical for my business.
That's great. Great advice. Jen, do you do any dynamic pricing or anything like that?
We just added price labs this year, so we're still trying to tweak it. If I continue on the path of growing my management business, John Ann is one that I would definitely contact to help with price labs. It's been a bit of a challenge for us to try to tweak it and make it work in our area. And so maybe John could help with that piece of it, because it's a very, I don't know. I don't know if it's our area with the fluctuation of the seasons and all that stuff. Maybe he would be able to help, but
Yeah.
if I continue to grow and go that path, then maybe I would, but still to be decided. Yeah. But I think to answer your question, Cynthia, I think probably, and I don't know if it's like been, I think the thing that stood out to me right at first, just listening to content podcasts, just learning the industry. And at first, like when I started, it was the beginning, like it was COVID. So everything was on the screen. And then once we were able to actually go to conferences, that was very exciting for me to be able to like actually meet the people that I talked to over Zoom, and just networking with people in Michigan and with people around the country and around the world at these conferences, just picking up tidbits here and there. And I think just really honing in on what it is that you want to do with your business. And it's not going to be the same as everybody else's. And I'm still actually trying to figure that out. And I struggle still with being tempted to grow my business large, because we think, oh, if I'm going to do this, like we got to scale, right? And I don't think that's what I want to do. And I'm constantly tempted, because I think that there's opportunity for me to actually grab a lot of properties that are going to be coming on the market for short-term rental management coming up. But I think that I have my heart after a little bit of a niche market, and it's going to be small, and it's going to be properties probably that I manage. And then my current owners, if they want to transition into more properties, like that's where I'm going to direct them to, is in that niche market, because that's where I want to go after. There's so many short-term rentals out there anymore. And it's like, how am I going to compete with everybody else? I'm not going to. But if I'm going to enter a niche market, that's what I want to, you're going to stand out better.
Yeah. I found that mainly because I am a real estate broker, and I also have a long-term property management company, that when people come to talk to me and want to buy a property, I can direct them one way or another. And long story short, I showed somebody a great property to invest in, and showed them the numbers, and they could not see it. All they were looking at was, oh, it's $320,000 to buy right now, versus, oh, I can go get a $200,000 house right now. And even showing them that their numbers wouldn't even make the $200,000 investment over 10 years that they were putting in this house, they could not get over it, versus I think it was 325, where they were going to come up with almost 80 grand a year because it was a triplex versus just a single family residence. And they just could not get over that. And I said, okay, then I went and found somebody else, because I gave them the opportunity, because I was working with them. And I think that's a niche market that I've been pretty successful at. And the other thing, and I know, Jen, you're a realtor. Glenyss, are you a realtor also? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're all realtors. So I found that by adding tidbits of things in the bookings and in their actual units, that if you want to buy a slice of heaven, I'm a realtor. I mention it in emails as people coming in because I've sold actually over the 5 years, I've sold 12 properties to people who have stayed at my Airbnbs because I have those types of things. Off this subject a little bit, what type of marketing are you doing? Either one of you doing anything special marketing to maybe get those new owners to you? What exactly what do you have out there right now?
Owner acquisition,
Yeah.
that's not getting off the subject, but we're actually on the same subject of I don't know if I want to really
Right.
go after, like, there's a lot of rentals that could open up with some retiring management companies. Do I want to go after them, or do I want to go after my niche market? And so if I do, it's something that I actually want to build within my own portfolio because
Right.
I can do what I want to. And then also I have two owners that want to buy new properties, another additional property. So I'm going to be focusing on finding them an additional property because it's going to be in my niche market if I can, they're on board with doing it. And I think if we're going to talk about niche markets, Glenyss has a
I
niche
know.
as well that she is going after too. So I don't necessarily want to grow my business. I want to go after these specific type properties. So
Glenyss, you want to share with us what you're doing over there in Australia?
Yeah. I did have an owner-facing website, but I changed it because it wasn't getting me the leads. I wasn't doing the lead generation to pull back into the website just because I'm managing the whole thing myself other than the revenue management now. And that's changing, by the way. But I'm looking at putting VAs on. But yeah, I haven't focused on the marketing, and I'm finding though the leads come to me organically, and just because the owners that I work with are really happy with what I'm doing, and they will refer people, or as you say, they buy a second property and give it to me. And that's enough for me to grow at the pace that I'm wanting to grow at the moment. And they are the best leads. They're pretty much, you're not having to sell them. They're understanding what it's all about. They trust you. And yeah, so I do the organic. And then the other thing I do, because I'm a Airbnb ambassador, superhost ambassador, I help new properties to list their properties on Airbnb. But I always say when they first come to me, hey, if you don't really want to do this yourself, I'm a property manager and this is my company, so reach out. Not that many do, but the ones that do, I tend to get good properties from them. I'm also in the Airbnb co-host network, and I'll get inquiries coming through there. So if somebody is wanting somebody to manage their property on Airbnb, they'll reach out through the co-host network. And then I'll say I'm also a property manager and I market it across the board. So I do get some really good leads that way. There are a lot of, crappy leads as well. And people who think, oh yeah, my friend has run Airbnb, so they know all about it. And they start telling me what it's about. And I'm thinking, nah, that's not for me. Or they've got real cash flow problems and I want to return next month. Or you're telling me I can earn this much in a year, which I never guarantee, by the way. I'll give them
Yeah.
and then they come back a month or two later and say, why am I not getting this? And I think, no, I know that type. I run a mile.
I think we've all experienced that. And
Yeah.
I think we're all in the same. I know about 20 properties is my limit with the employees and people that I have working for me. I don't know if I would ever want to go bigger, just because, again, personally, I've got everything else going in a million directions. But I know, Jen, if you did want to go bigger, do you have a number that you thought you would be, since you said you've got a couple of retirements coming up with some property management people in your area right now?
yeah,
If you thought about it.
I probably could. I could probably scale to, I could probably get several properties. There's going to be probably with those companies, if those companies both like are done, one is retiring is what I hear, and then the other one people aren't happy with. People aren't happy
Yeah.
with the retiring one either. They're just
Right.
not happy. So
Happy.
it could have the potential of scaling to 40 to 60. And
Wow.
I may look young, but I'm like not. I am not. That's why I want to have more quality properties in my niche market that I'm after.
Right.
So I think that's what I'm going to go after instead of chasing all the numbers. And do I want to do that? That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
I mean,
That's a lot.
feel like I have the knowledge to do it, but is that
I know you could do it.
is that going to give me the life that I want?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I'm ready to get a little bit more in the passive side of the income
Yeah, right.
because I am older and I'm not a young person that wants to like just take off and scale and grow and all these properties.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I need
I
to
don't think
follow
you're
my.
older. You're just in a better phase of life.
Yes,
There
that's
we go.
what we
I like
all
that.
are.
I
That's what
like
we
that.
all are.
Yeah.
Yeah. The funny thing is that my assistant, Anita, now instead of Erin, but anyways, she's a Erin 2.0, which is amazing. I don't know how I find these ladies that just take everything and go with it. But I'm having a birthday party in March, and she goes, "So here's what we're going to say. It's your birthday party, not retirement, right?" I went, "Oh, man," because I thought that I would be retiring at this point in time. And I just keep going and going. And so I think that from my standpoint, and again, I can still travel. I can do the things I want to do. My mom is more elderly and needs some care. So I'm really okay, comfortable at my level at where I'm at, because when I got over 20, I was like going crazy. It was just too much. Doors. And then going to 40 or 60, I couldn't even imagine doing that. Oh, Jen, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you have to think about what is your end goal? Like,
Yeah.
how do you want to live your life? And can you manage your life within the parameters of I
Right.
could make more money, but do I?
And I think that's a really critical thing, because I think whenever I go to an industry conference and talk to people, oh, how many properties have you got now? How many properties do you want to get? And I don't believe it's about the number of properties. It's about stepping back and saying, what is your niche? What do you want out of each of those properties? What do you want? What's your why? What do you want? And like you said, Jen, and then what's that figure that you need to have that lifestyle? And then you work back. I do luxury properties, and from those luxury properties, I know I'm going to make 25 grand a year out of each of those for the business, for myself. And so I can then say, okay, if I want to have X dollars, this is the number of properties I need. And it doesn't need to be 200 properties or 100 properties or even 50. It could be just 20 or 30 or whatever, right, depending on what you decide. So I think the focus, what I see, hospitality takes a hit when you've got companies, real estate agents getting into short-term rentals, people who are just focusing on scaling the business. It's all about scaling. How do we scale? How do we scale? Mm-hmm. And then you see all the review ratings go down once you start to scale that big, because they're not putting the emphasis on the guest experience. And that's what this industry is all about. The stories, the guest experience, the people who are going to go back and refer that place to, or your company to, other people, and it's critical.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. The guest experience is, how can we provide a better guest experience than somebody else? And when they come back every year, I have a number of those kinds of people coming back and booking every year. I know that
I think that's a discussion point that you have with your new owners or potential owners, because you have to make them understand that you're paying me for a reason. I know things that you don't know. You have to build that trust. They have to gain that trust in you, but they also have to give that trust a little bit too, because I am the professional. I know what I'm doing. You guys see it in a different way. I see it in a hospitality lens. And so that's what the guest is here for. And if you want to make money, you have to trust me. That's why you hired me, right? So yeah, that's that. It's all about that guest experience.
And that's big, because the things that I find when I talk to new owners, I always ask them, what's important to you? Why are you doing this? What are the most important things? And mostly they say that the property is taken care of, and then return on investment next, and then that we can actually use the property ourselves occasionally. And when it comes to taking care of the property, then that's tied in with taking care of the guest. You give that guest a great experience, the owner's going to be really happy that they're going to respect that place because they're getting more than they actually expected. And then the owner is going to be happy that they're getting great reviews and people love their place and all of that. So it is so critical.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, ladies, this has been great today. I appreciate you coming on. And so what I'd like to finish up with is just say your name again, what your website is, And so you can share some information about where you're located at. So if anyone listening right here in the future wants to visit up in Michigan and be on a lake or over in Australia, I still got to get it back over to Australia, that they may be able to get in touch with you at least by your website. So why don't you go, Jen? Tell us, finish us up with everything about.
Yes, Jennifer Polcyn with New Journey Management. So the newjourneymanagement.com is the owner-facing website, and then the newjourneyproperties.us is where you can see the properties that I manage. So
sweet. All right, Glenyss, what do we got?
I'm Glenyss de Vylder. My company is bythebeachgetaways.com.au, and my properties range from Port Stephens, Gold Coast, and Brisbane City and Brisbane Beachside as well, or Lakeside. Yeah. So I'd love to see you over here.
I know. Great. Thanks, you ladies. Thank you so much.
That's a wrap on this episode of Sip, Sell, Repeat. If you loved what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another powerhouse woman in real estate. Got a topic you want me to cover? Send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep sipping, keep selling, and keep repeating that cycle of success. Cheers to you and your next big deal.